Welcome back to Crucible Mixtapes. I'm your host, Dev. Today we'll be talking about Blink and Voidwalker Warlock for the most part. Most of it's going to be about the middle tree Voidwalker, but I will include a little bit about the other two trees, just a tiny bit. But the majority of this video will be talking about Blink and why you should be using Blink when playing these classes, and why Blink is just such a fun option that I don't see a lot of people use, maybe because of the learning curve and because of the downsides that come with using Blink. So if you're not familiar with Blink, it's the option that you can pick as a jump option when using Voidwalker. It's not available on any other Warlock class, it's not available on any other character class, it's just available on this one specific purple Warlock character. With Blink, you're able to kind of do a mini teleport wherever your momentum is going, and this allows you to traverse the map in a way that the other jumps don't allow you to do. It's quite unique, and it can be a little bit unpredictable for the enemy to understand where you're going if they don't have sight of you when they hear you blinking. Another thing is that Blink is quite loud as a jump, as opposed to the other jumps in the game. Blink does tend to make a louder whoosh kind of cast sound, and it also has a cast animation. The other jumps in the game don't have a cast animation. They do have a jump animation that usually causes your character to enter a small amount of delay, but the delay that you feel and see from other jumps in the game is not the same as Blink. Blink actually truly has a delay to it, especially if you're not using Astrocyte Verse, if you're just playing default Blink, or Transverse Steps Blink, or Ophidian Aspect Blink, or Quick Draw Guns with Blink, just base Blink. You will always have delay when choosing to use Blink. So this is something that you need to consider when you're moving from place to place. Every time you choose to Blink somewhere, you're entering into delay into the movement option. In a sense, Blink is an exercise in certainty. You need to know wherever you're going, wherever you're blinking, is going to be safe. It's going to be where you need to go. If you're uncertain about where you're blinking, if you're uncertain about where you're blinking, then chances are you'll mess up. You'll hit your head somewhere, you'll get clipped on the environment, or just kind of lose control. It's probably one of the easiest jumps to just not understand where you're going to go for the first few times where you're using it, especially when it comes to moving downwards. Blink can kind of accelerate your downwards momentum, and that's unlike any other jump in the game, so that can be somewhat odd for people using it the first time. You also have almost no chance to save yourself if you fall off of a ledge. It's not like a hunter's jump where it'll bring you up. It usually follows where your momentum's going, so if you're falling down and you press Blink, usually you'll go further down, you won't go up. So you need precise platforming with Blink. There are ways that you can save yourself if you fall, but it's a rare thing to pull off, and it's really just a technique to know in the back of your head. I'll demonstrate that in a bit, but for the most part, when you're in a certain momentum with Blink, you're locked that way, which does have its benefits, because then you can pre-aim or pre-move your camera during the Blink animation. Since Blink does have a time period to be cast, you can just move your camera where you need it to be while you're blinking, and you're most likely not going to affect the range of your Blink after it's cast, so you can just look around freely after using it. Kind of similar to Hunter's Strafe Jump. In a way, Hunter's Strafe Jump and Blink are quite similar to each other. Strafe Jump is very committal. Once you've used that, you're stuck in that arc trajectory, especially if you're using Stompies. You just get a very dramatic forward dive with Strafe Jump on Hunters with Stompies. It's similar to Blink, but you have much less delay in terms of gunplay with Strafe Jump, allowing you to do more aerial combat, allowing you to land some spare rations, headshots, and even a shotgun fight in the air. With Blink, you're not really going to be doing air-to-air combat. Sometimes if you do a high enough blink, you can fall on the enemy with a shotgun or with handheld supernova and take them out. But for the most part, you're not going to be floating in the air shooting. You're not going to be double jumping in the air shooting. You're going to be falling shooting. Or you'll be doing base jump shots with Blink. Something that is super important with the Blink playstyle is just being good at the neutral game. Understanding how to use slides. Understanding how to play well with just normal jump without the double jump. Sometimes you have to choose not to blink because it has delay. It's not always safe to use blink. Sometimes the best option is to just slide out of there and to have enough mobility in your build, usually above 5 or 6, to help you make the important jumps that you could do in a single character jump without blink. It's not always necessary, but it's quite helpful to have enough mobility to do a higher jump on the single jump. You can bypass this if you're using transverse steps. You can run lower mobility and then have the higher base jump, but then you don't have access to the improved version of Blink. Much of my gameplay in this video is with Astrocyte Verse. Once I unlocked that, I used it all the time. Before then, I was using transverse steps. I think transverse steps are your best bet with Blink if you don't have Astrocyte Verse unlocked yet. Ophidian Aspect comes second, but transverse step is its own unique playstyle that I think is quite a bit above Ophidian Aspect when it comes to Blink, and that's mainly because you're able to do the reload Blink, which is really fun to do. You can basically just start sprinting and then blink somewhere, and then your guns reload. And this can be a predictable technique for you to do with Blink, and it's quite fun to pull off. It lets you stay moving. It lets you stay elusive. If you're losing a gunfight, you can just start running and blink away and reposition your angle and then start the next gunfight with a full clip without having to take that reload animation. So yeah, transverse steps with Blink is quite a good option. I highly recommend it if you don't have the Astrocyte Verse. Though once you get Astrocyte Verse, I don't think it's really worth using transverse step just because of what you can do with Astrocyte Verse. It feels like with Astrocyte Verse on, Blink becomes the version of itself that it should have always been. Quite similar to its unnerfed form in Destiny 1, but it's a little bit different. It has much more verticality once you use the Astrocyte Verse. You're able to go higher naturally, and you're also able to have less delay in between blink casts. It seems you're able to use blink twice in one jump for the most part, which isn't always useful, but once you're aware of that ability, it becomes useful when you take the longer jumps. When you take the longer blinks, sometimes it makes sense to do a blink on the way down from your jump to bring you down faster, and it's not always important, but it's good to know that option is there. So in regards to the Astrocyte Verse, I want to talk about certain techniques that you can do with it to help improve your Blink gameplay. So the first thing is it's much easier to do a rescue blink if you fall off a ledge that would lead to your death with Astrocyte Verse. Because Astrocyte Verse has a innately higher vertical blink, if you fall down and press blink at the right time, your character will do kind of a default upwards blink momentum, and then you can grab the ledge and come back to the ledge. You're able to do this without Astrocyte Verse. You're able to do it without transverse step. You can do it on a base blink, but it's much easier on Astrocyte Verse. You can even double cast blink to bring yourself back up if you mess up. It happened to me. It's happened to me a few times, but I've not been able to capture it on camera as much as I'd like to. I've only been able to capture it one time, but I figured since I caught it this one time, I'd actually talk about it and just kind of capture myself practicing it in Mayhem. You can do it in any map really, but again, you have to be close to the ledge, and if you fall off a ledge and you press blink right before you enter too much downward momentum, your character will cast an upwards blink, which you can use to save yourself. Just be aware of it. It only works if your momentum's not going too fast, like forward, and not too fast downwards. You have to be able to kind of hug the ledge to do this. Another thing to be aware of with blink, of course, is sword techniques with the blink. You can bring out your sword right before blinking to have a third-person view blink, and then switch back to your primary as the blink ends. It's kind of a 1-2 combination button press, so I have heavy on my scroll wheel. So what I do is right as I blink, I press scroll wheel like 1 second before, and then my character enters into third person mode while I'm blinking, and then I switch back to my hand cannon or shotgun as I'm getting out of the blink. It happens pretty seamlessly, and it almost kind of looks like its own animation, but it's not. It's two things that I'm doing. And you want to get used to doing this. You can do this with transverse steps. You can do this with any equipment. You don't need Astrocyte Verse. It's just that swords and blink are a pretty good combination. And if you have Black Talon, that's a pretty good one to do too. You can also jump, blink, do the heavy swipe of Black Talon, and then blink after if you need more momentum or to stall. So yeah, I recommend pairing blink with the sword. Another thing you can do with swords is the base jump into sword swipe into forward blink. This will give you a much more forward momentum blink cast. This is super useful if you just need to cover some ground and you happen to have heavy ammo. I mean, why not spend one of your valuable heavy ammo to move faster around the map? This can also be compounded by blink's upward momentum camera usage. So if you look up when you blink, when you're casting blink, all you have to do is look up. Your character will just go higher. It's pretty cool. You can do this at any point during your momentum and blink. So this is a little hard to, I guess, say in words, but if you can just imagine a jump kind of like being a bunny hop or a hill, it doesn't matter what part of the bunny hop trajectory of that first jump that you cast blink is in. All you have to do is look up, and your character will have a more upwards blink momentum. You could be falling down, you could be on your way up, you could be at the apex of your jump. Anywhere where you look up as you cast blink, you'll be able to go a little bit higher. And this can save you sometimes, so just look out for it if you need a tiny bit more verticality. It helps you, especially when you're doing the more horizontal blinks. You would think that maybe it makes sense to have a more, I guess, central camera, but if you're doing a horizontal blink close to the ground, sometimes you want to look up while doing it, and then your character will gain even more distance. This timing is a little bit close, but with more practice you can do it. It's not that hard. I guess the one thing you want to reduce when doing blink is your amount of lag time falling down. Doing blinks close to the ground is usually ideal, or doing blinks with a small amount of fall time is okay too. There is a technique that I call exact blinking, where when you blink, you go exactly to the platform that you want to with little to no delay into pulling out your guns. You can do this with or without Astrocyte Verse, and really it's just like your character's model just lands. There's no bounce, there's no fall time. Your blink just puts them on the platform that you're going for, and this is what I call an exact blink. And I think it brings your guns up a tiny bit faster, like not even a full frame, it seems like, or maybe half a frame. But you notice it more with Astrocyte or a quick draw gun, but it definitely is a thing that I've noticed. Look out for it, the exact blink. The other technique that I do with blink is what I call the bounce blink. So there's a few ways to use it. If you just blink in place and you cast blink on your downward trajectory towards the ground, your character will kind of do a bounce into the ground, which brings them up into an upwards blink. It's really weird. It looks odd. Your character's just like hopping. And if you do this with Astrocyte Verse, you can actually hurt yourself because you'll do such a dramatic blink into the ground that you kind of hit an invisible ceiling and just damage yourself. It's quite odd to do. Sometimes it happens to me mid-game. Just be aware of that. Sometimes you can blink into a slope, and then that gives you a huge bounce from the ground, almost like a super jump from Halo 2. Don't have any footage of this, but it is something that I've done before, and it's been really crazy when it's happened. I've gone super high and sometimes even killed myself just from blinking into a slope that bounced me into a wall. Continuing with sword stalling, you can basically use a sword swing either with or without ammo at the top of your blink against a wall, and then cast blink again to kind of stall in place. It's not always useful to do this, but sometimes you just need to stall over a doorway. You can do this. It usually takes 2 casts of blink, so you have to know that you want to do this. Another thing with blink is that if you use 2 blinks in a row, you enter a longer delay until you can blink again. So try and space out your blinks whenever possible, so you don't enter the longer cooldown. When you're using Nova Warp on blink, you're able to actually blink 3 times instead of 2 with the Nova Warp cast. This is base blink, not the Nova Warp shift blink. This is blink with the jump button. So what you would do is press double jump blink into supercast, mash blink, and then mash blink again. And what you'll see is that you can basically do 3 blinks. I think doing a super refreshes your blinks, or at least gives you 1 more blink. I don't think you can do 4, but you can definitely do 3. And you can do this with Nova Bomb as well. You can blink into Nova Bomb into blink blink. This is generally only possible with Astrocyte Verse, unless you're doing it on a really high ledge. Then you can probably do it with regular blink too, but it's much more consistent in Astrocyte Verse. And I guess just be aware of that. Like when you're entering Nova Warp Super, you can do 3 blinks in that initial cast. So just use that to help you position yourself into the initial kills with that super, because it is quite easy to be gunned down with Nova Warp. With the Nova Warp tree, your melee is also a Force Palm push. When you hit somebody with it, it actually pushes them backwards and causes some, I guess, like screen shake or disruption for them. And they're usually within damage to be killed with a body shot from a hand cannon. So you could usually just blink behind someone, melee them, and then shoot them with your hand cannon to kill them. It's something I do all the time. It's not the best technique if you have a shotgun out, but if you're playing against a sniper, you can blink up to his face and just blink him, punch him, and then shoot him and go on to the next dude. It's pretty cool when you're used to it, because you could like punch someone, shoot them in the chest, and then look away, and the explosion damage will kill them. You don't even have to look at them to do it. It's pretty cool. What other techniques are there? Oh yes. Super versus super combat is quite bad on the Nova Warp class. You're usually just slower in terms of dishing out damage to the other supers, so it's important to be elusive. A lot of times the best thing you can do is just run away and go for the non-super enemies instead of the super, or just try and clip them with the max range of your damage to get them. Another thing I've kind of started getting used to doing is actually using handheld supernova in Nova Warp Super instead of my super orb damage. And what this lets me do is this actually lets me start a super versus super fight with handheld and then kill them with the half charge orb instead of doing 2 full charges. It tends to be a little bit faster. I recommend trying it out. Another thing to kind of be aware of, if you're a Controverse Hold player, I haven't even brought it up till now, jeez, I hate Controverse Hold, I don't even use it, but I do have to bring it up. If you use Controverse Holds, don't forget to use handheld supernova in your super, because you already have damage reduction from being in super, but then by using handheld you get more damage reduction. So you have double damage reduction, and then the ability to one-hit kill, and then also get your grenade cooldowns coming back up. And then the other thing is that when you're casting Nova Warp, you get a refresh on your cooldowns anyways, so you might as well throw your grenade before using it, while using it, and then after using it. Or at least get ready to use it after your super's over, because you'll be refreshed to full. So that's like 3 handheld supernovas that you can do off of 1 super cast, before, during, and after. If you're a Controverse Hold player, that's like the best. It's truly 3 kills. It's the best. All that damage reduction is pretty ridiculous. I don't play with it. I don't really encourage you to play with it, but at the same time, use what you gotta use to win. It's an option in the game. And Controverse Hold is definitely best used with mid-tree Voidwalker. It's not going to be used as well with the other classes. It's nice with the empowered grenades from the Chaos class, but it's nowhere near as effective as a one-hit kill shotgun grenade. It's just too instant and on demand, and yeah, it's going to be nerfed, but it's still going to be good, just because of how on demand that damage is as opposed to the other Warlock grenades and their options. So anyways, that's just been my primer about Blink. I mean, those are just some techniques. Aside from that, I think it's just a fun way to think about the game. Like, once you get accustomed to the muscle memory of blinking, you start thinking about moving around the map differently than you do with other jump options. You just see things as blinkable. You see things within blink distance. You see how far you can go from point A to point B with one, maybe two blinks. You also start to look at the map as, I don't know, just like more parkour-ish with Blink. I mean, you kind of do with all the classes, but with Blink, it's like there's much less forgiveness with the jump. You can mess up, but like when you pull off successful blinks from game to game, you just feel like smooth and ace. It feels really good to master Blink as its own playstyle. I'll also say that Blink is quite frustrating, and sometimes I have to get off of it. If I'm having a bad day on Blink, it's usually because I'm tired. I think Blink does require a little bit of that certainty, as I said earlier, which is just like a mental strength aptitude that is different from the other chumps. It's really just easy to not have a good day on blinking, especially while you're learning it. Like, it's just not as intuitive as the other jumps in the game at first. And even when you're hundreds of hours into Blink, sometimes it's just frustrating the amount of delay that comes with it. Even with Astrocyte Verse, it still has the delay. You're nowhere near as free as a Hunter on straight jump. So the freedom that and uniqueness that Blink gives you is only accessible after the delay. But then once you're aware of the delay and you accommodate your playstyle to it, it almost feels like there's little to no delay with Blink, because you're accustomed to it and you're able to tailor your muscle memory around the delay and make yourself safe. And then you're able to do crazy things like blink past an enemy who thought he was going to get you, or do like just a really high blink and fall on top of enemies with a shotgun or with your melee and just get the double kill, or just blink up to people and do your handheld supernova because that thing is busted as hell, and then you get the life regen. It really just opens up its own possibilities that you can't get with Glide, and that's why I recommend messing around with Blink and getting good for it, maybe even learning it for Trials, which is coming soon. I bet Blink Warlocks will be one of the least played ways. Most of the Warlocks that I play against are actually using Glide. Even on the Void tree, they're usually using Glide. It's rare that I see someone who sticks with Blink for long. It just seems to be quite punishing for people. I don't think Bungie should change Blink. Blink should probably stay the way it is. It's good enough. If they did change Blink, I'd just ask them for like a tiny bit less frame delay on the default Blink, and that's it. It doesn't need the radar part fixed. It doesn't need any distance change. The distance is fine even without Astrocyte. I think the delay just feels too punishing for people, especially in a sandbox environment where one-hit kills run rampant. So yeah, this has been today's episode on Blink. I hope it's been useful. Please refer to the background gameplay if you need help with any Warlock mechanics. Some of it will be me running around the map. Some of it will be me slaying it out on Blink. I recommend just, pausing and rewinding parts that catch your interest and seeing if you can recreate it. It's just really fun to mess around with Blink, and I got these clips from like a 2 to 3 days of just messing around on the weekend. So yeah, have a great day, and thanks for tuning in to Crucible Mixtapes. See you in the next one.